Well, today we are in the back, like the furthest back of our property line. You might can see that fence there, or maybe not. We don't have a whole lot of sunshine today, and I'm using an iPad, a really old iPad to record on since my camera's messed up and Natalie's phone is not charged. So this records in 1080p, but the lens is horrible on this guy, so it's any darkness, any amount of non-perfect light probably makes the video quality go down pretty bad. Today's video is probably going to be short and sweet. Two things that I have learned about crafting this year alone. And one of those things is that maybe, you see a lot of grafters not wrap, they're graft in like parafilm or some kind of poly tape. But it seems like right here is a perfect example of one not wrapped. It's sort of dried out. There were green buds here on this one. There may be a little bit of green trying to push through there, but that graft, even if there was a guarantee, if this didn't dry out, that it would be successful, unwrapped, there's not. I'd give that like a 30% chance of surviving. Second lesson, and it's probably because I haven't done grafting on a mass level and with as many different types of plants as, people that are, professional nurserymen. And that is, buds get eaten. Let me see if I can zoom in here. Right there is a bud that came out of the parafilm, was green and looking nice. Let's look at some other ones here. Okay, all right, there's one. There's another one. And there's a few. And there's a new bud coming out there. Now, I really didn't want to make a video about these hawthorn species yet until I seen if the grafts succeeded or failed. This is something maybe a month or two down the road we would have maybe tackled. Oh, surprise, here we're going back to some grafted hawthorns. But in those 3 sticks, they seem to be pushing buds out really good, getting some green, and that green pushed through that parafilm within days, not weeks. And I come back the other day, I seen either like a flat spot or something where the buds were. Took me another 2 days to come out here, and I seen a little caterpillar about that size that was orange and black were eating all the buds. These grafts are fairly low to the ground, just on hawthorn root suckers here, some mayhaw root suckers I should say. And maybe we need to add diatomaceous earth around that area when we do a low graft. Maybe they're just more attracted to caterpillars and stuff just because of the species. Maybe these are just so enticing that it's going to bring caterpillars to this super new growth. So these guys, and it's hard to stabilize video. I'm looking at it like a 10-11 inch screen or more, and this video is not easy to stabilize. It's probably a little bit jumpy, but I've got 2 different types of hawthorns that I'm trying to graft. A red sun, Chinese haw, and a red azarol, which was that from Mexico or something. There's like gold versions, and there's several versions of Chinese hawthorn, several cultivars and stuff, but they should all be graft compatible with mayhaws. I know a lot of people probably graft them onto English hawthorns because they're probably less likely to root sucker than they are these mayhaws here, like my big giant mayhaw tree here. And this one that I did not wrap, nothing touched the buds. They're just kind of dried out. And this is a red sun that I put on a mayhaw that's not a root sucker. This is just one that has not really done anything for us. And it's not much younger than that giant mayhaw there. Maybe the root density in this area or the shading out of it just made it not grow much. And you can see it's kind of growing sideways now instead of up. Here's also the first year another mayhaw seedling that we've had growing has actually flowered. So this is flowered for the first time, and it flowered like after that original tree, and it, for whatever reason, it did get some level of pollination. Only noticed 2 or 3 flowers, but let's see if we can see. Right there is one berry. Again, I'm zooming in, and the quality of this lens is terrible. And there's another little berry right there. These berries actually may be bigger than the other seedlings mayhaws. This is the third one that flowered, but this is a grafted one that we added late last year, Red Champ, and we have a different grafted one too that hasn't been planted in the ground yet. But as far as I can tell, there are no mayhaws on here, and all 3 of the different seedlings or cultivars flower at different times. Actually, I do see a bud there from a flower right there. It's hard to tell if that guy is going to actually produce a mayhaw berry, but there's proof that, you know, number 3 flowered. Now we're back at our bigger tree, and there are a few mayhaw berries here, and they're hard to spot when they're green. But I mean, this guy would have flowered. See if we can get it before that one that has the bigger mayhaw berries already on it. And yet these berries are like a third or half the size at this stage of maturity. So that tells me this guy here is not going to have very big berries in comparison to whatever that other random seedling. And these might have even, I was going to say they might have even came from the same source, but actually thinking back 20 or whatever years ago, I bought this at Ace Hardware, I believe. And then the other ones came from maybe Willis Orchards or some kind of online nursery. I'm back a little bit of ways to try to get that whole tree in a single shot here. Yeah, probably took 8 or 10 years before it bloomed. It died back in either a bad summer drought or bad winter, I can't remember, once or twice, and then since then it just took off, and it's been fantastic, with the exception of we didn't have anything to pollinate it with, so it was getting very limited pollination. And now we have 6 genetically different seedlings or cultivars, and those 2 grafted ones are probably going to create root suckers that's going to bring in 2 more genetically different, you know, ones to help pollinate, I guess. So we'll have 8 different genetically different mayhaws here, plus anything that we decide to graft, you know, the root suckers that are formed. Now, rust is a big issue with these guys, but there's no way I'm gonna waste my time and money spraying for something that doesn't get pollinated. So after everything is blooming, hopefully there'll be enough, you know, crossover between, you know, these 6 or 8 genetically different plants that all of them get a proper level of pollination, you know, in the coming years. And then we'll have a lot more berries, and that'll give us a reason to say, okay, do we need to get some kind of fungicides to keep this cedar apple rust or whatever to a minimum, and then try to harvest them and make jellies and stuff? Or do we just give up and say no more hawthorns. This sort of resurrection of the hawthorn projects, you know, I sort of gave up on hawthorns, maybe a year or two ago, to move on to other projects, whether it be pawpaws or something else, and mulberries and a few other things. But it just goes to show, even if you think you're done with something, 10 or 20 years down the road, you could always come back to it and say, okay, let's try again. And a few of these things outside of the mayhaws, like the Chinese haw and all this, I've tried before on whatever rootstock that the nurseries had. Pretty much everything, I believe, was grafted and failed. But not a lot of people use mayhaw because they're suckering. And some rootstocks are there to prevent suckering. Some rootstocks are there to have more drought resistance. And mayhaws should also give you more flooding tolerance. So flooding, acidic soil, if these Chinese hawthorns and stuff like that are capable of producing and thriving and surviving here, but just don't like the soil, then putting them onto mayhaws should be the answer. And I can't promise you it will be successful. It may not. I think on the end of the last season's garden vlog, we had just started messing around with parafilm tape for grafting, and I was kind of, I'd heard mixed stories. Some people love poly tape, the plastic tape, and you can do grocery bags or whatever, cut them into strips if you don't have it, and just wrap around that graft. But the more I work with it, the more it's self-sticking. You stretch it and pull it onto itself, and you don't have to tie it. You don't have to worry about, like plastic, when you tie it, it may come, it may loosen up, and then you're grafted. You don't have as good of an airtight or watertight seal wherever you tie it. Sometimes that seems to be the case with me. And you also have to wonder about girdling the tree, over time if you forget to cut it. Now the strength of parafilm isn't powerful. It breaks relatively easy, which is probably one of the reasons why so many people use it, because those buds just push right through. They break through it. So a lot of nurserymen will use rubber bands or electrical tape or maybe even plastic tape to actually hold the union tighter, that graft where the two grafted, I should say the rootstock and the scion wood are grafted together, hold it tighter, and then they can take that rubber band or whatever off later and just keep the parafilm and just let it bud out through there. I think one roll of that parafilm tape cost me like $14 versus about $3.25 for a roll of plastic tape. And I think there are a few places that are selling it for like $7 or $8 a roll, so I'm gonna give those places a try. And yeah, it may be worth the greater expense to have that seal, that moisture and air seal in your graft, and not have to worry about it, girdling the tree and stuff like that. This is not a hawthorn, but this is a graft on a pawpaw that I did a year or so back, and it girdled it pretty good, and I didn't know if it was going to survive when I used plastic tape there. It was like oozing and all, but let me see if I can zoom in. There we go. We got some growth on it. It looks like it's coming back finally from a KSU Atwood. And I know I talked one or two videos back about, hey, I hope my next video is putting a shovel in the ground. But we kind of had a couple incidences, like that Gulf Rose plum that just went like that and broke like 3 days after we bought it from the nursery. And I tried to like fix, because the graft and all was still fine in it, and then we had the worms out here on this, and a lot of these projects aren't conclusive yet. You know, I don't have the answers for everything, and I still have some more materials coming in. I've still bought some more plants or shrubs that we need to feature in some soon videos. And you know, when I said I hope I get something in the ground, I was real thinking about like some figs and all. I just need to make some little raised beds and stuff for them, little like mycorrhizal light beds, and start planting and making sure that when I plant something, I have a backup of that fruit tree, just in case nematodes or something, weather, something just gets that tree that I put in the ground and kills it, that I have a backup. And I even recently just got a plant that I've been looking for since we started like the wetland zone, you know, one project and stuff like that. When I started zoning out different zones on the property to plant different types of plants or do different types of experiments with. So hopefully that'll be a soon video, and hopefully we'll get that plant in the ground as well in that video. I'm actively doing, you know, messing with air layering, and I'm actively trying to do some of those post mycorrhizal and mini mycorrhizal beds. It's just not coming to a completion, you know, fast enough. You know, I'm just walk by a bed and I throw a few twigs there, and it's just like the pineapple guava bed we started working on last season. It's, you know, it's coming along, but it's not, you know, looking anywhere near done. Alright guys, I think that's it for today's garden vlog. We're still in this soft opening here, so we're not doing a whole lot of stuff. We're not going 90 miles per hour. But until next time, take care.